Okay, so now we're going to move on to the mudding stage. When you guys come in the morning, or if you were the afternoon class in the afternoon, your bucket is going to be, lid's going to be snapped on, so it's on there tight. We use 1 bucket of mud until it's gone. So you just go around peeling that off there like that. The next thing we'll do is mix it. Now, you guys will probably have to mix it every day. PM class, if it's already mixed, they won't have to, but if they have to get a new bucket out, then they'll have to mix. What I want you to mix it with, I don't care which one of these. There's no need of dirtying them both, but they both work. This one's probably a little bit better as far as, what did the video show us about what's 2 things you got to watch for when you're mixing?
Bubbles, don't overmix it.
If you overmix it, it puts air bubbles in it, which makes more work for you on your finish work. That's one thing. Another thing, what they tell you to be careful about doing?
The bucket.
Hitting the edge of the bucket really bad, because it'll chip that plastic off, and then that's in your mud. And anytime you get anything in your mud, it just hinders you. And you guys will figure that out. I'm sure it's going to happen, and you'll see. So we're going to mix this. The only thing that we mix with in here is this right angle drill, and the reason being it's a good heavy duty drill. It's not going to be hard on it. And like I told you before, I use my cordless drills to mix mine on my own jobs, but I bought my cordless drills. It's really hard on them, so we will not do that. Austin, oh, you're going to do that. Will you, John, could I get you to plug that in for me? So, like that guy showed you in the video, kind of hold the bucket with your feet. I think I already did earlier. Yep. And you're just going to mix it up so it's a nice consistency. It probably don't need much because the bucket's already been mixed. But you want to make sure you're mixing the whole bucket down all the way. Okay, once it's mixed, and that don't look too bad, like it said, you don't want to overmix. Take this thing and get off what you can by tapping it like this. Now, I told you guys to have a water bucket ready. So we're going to have that so we can, doesn't hurt to run it in there a little bit. This will not get left for PM. This is going to get taken out of there and cleaned over in that sink. Okay, make sure you're using hot water. Make sure you rinse it down the drain good so it's not plugging up the drain. But we want to get as much off as we can. And this soaking in this, and this can stay to the end of the day. Austin, can you unplug that and hand me that? And then I can get this off there. So the rest of the cleanup will be done over in the sink. But that also includes cleaning this water bucket, because that stuff gets left down in there and it's a mess, okay? The worst thing about this stuff is it is a big mess. And if you leave it, it makes it harder the next day. So, starting out mudding, I start out with a 6-inch knife. They showed using a 4. I don't use a 4 unless I absolutely have to, because that's the only thing that'll fit in there. I use a 6 and usually a 12 like Garrett has in his hand there. And you're going to have a mud bucket. These look all fairly clean. That's how it's going to be when you guys are done. These are all numbered. You are going to sign tools out. I'm going to have a list right up there. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to go down through there and make sure you cleaned your tools. Do not use your tools and because you're done mudding, hand it to somebody else. Okay, that is not going to happen. I want everybody cleaning their own tools. Okay, so everybody's getting their own tools. That way I can keep track of who to give deductions to that are not cleaning their tools. And it never fails. There will be a bucket over there with this down in here full of mud down in the bottom of the sink over there. Okay, I like to let them set to the next day and then make you clean them the next day because it's not very fun. Make sure you clean your drywall tools up. It's simple if you clean them up early. Getting your mud With a 6-inch trowel, you just reach down in there. You get some mud in there. With your bucket, you can see that the bucket has mud up on the edge. What I want everybody doing is taking your trowel and raking that back down, because if you leave it up on the edge of that bucket, it dries and hardens, and then it's in your mud, and it's a mess. Next step is, after you get mud, is to take the lid and set it on there. You don't have to stomp it on and fasten it down. And this never fails either. I find the lid, somebody got mud, nobody's around the bucket, everybody's working there, the lid sits up there with that like that. Well, that's drying your mud, putting chunks, hard chunks in your mud. So generally what I do is I come and stomp this lid on, and then every time somebody has to go get mud, they gotta kind of hurt your fingers pulling that off. And it's annoying, because you shouldn't have to do it. But if you leave that lid sitting on there like that, it won't dry out, and that's the whole point of it. So we're gonna start mudding. Your corner bead, remember this is done in 3 steps, usually 3 to 4 steps. You're not trying to get it to a perfect finish the first time, but the neater job you do the first time makes it easier on the other coats. So you're gonna come here, your object is you're trying to fill about like that right there. So if I turn this, so you can see there's that gap. That's what you're trying to fill there. Not every bit of your trowel width, but probably about 4 inches of it. You're just trying to fill that area. Now, this stuff, when it dries, it will shrink, so you'll have more fill-in the next day. So you're taking your trowel along here, yep, and laying it flat as you can, and you're just pulling it across there, putting some pressure in, filling that area, okay? You want to try, like I said, you want to try to get it on there as neat as you can the first time. But if there's some imperfections, just like they showed you in that video, it's okay. So you're bringing it up, filling, and you're kind of wrapping that around that end. What you don't want to leave is, I got a nail that's not in far enough there because I'm hitting it and clinking it. Remember, them were called clinkers. I don't want to get your hammer all crappy, so I'll use that. Screw, you would screw in a little bit farther, and nails you're going to tap in, right? But you're going to get that filled across there out to that point. You don't want to leave a great big, see how this is tapered right here pretty fine? You want to try to get it like that, and that corner bead I should have put more nails in. You can see it's loose. See that? Because it should have had another set of nails in. I stopped nailing. Anyway, you're running that across there like that. Same thing here. Remember, they talked about hitting this edge and scraping that excess off. Back here, you guys do not have any of this, but I kind of want to go over that taping real quick. When you have, what kind of seam is this called? Is it a butt seam? Isn't both of these tapered? Okay, so that is a tapered seam. Normally, a tapered seam, you're right, wouldn't run that direction. The tapered seam would be this way, but that's the way I put it on, just so I could show this. Remember your tape, you'd pre-cut this tape to size. Remember, there is an inside and an outside to it. You can see that that has a point where it protrudes that way. So you want to try to stick that on that direction, because it'll tend to suck into that joint, and that's what you want. I'm going to pull it right back off, I think, for afternoon. So I'm just going to put this mud on there. I don't know why, I got a bad habit of putting my mud on this way than dragging it this way. They were doing it in that movie, and most good drywallers will. They put it in and put it on in one step, like that. I drag it, I don't know why. Slows you down, it actually does, but so you're going to get your tape on there. You want to try to get it as centered on there as you can. Now, with a small piece of tape like this, or when you're first starting out with your piece of tape, if you just put on there and try to drag across that, it wants to pull. Sometimes you can use another trowel to hold it. I usually just use my finger and kind of hold it there and drag. And what you were wanting to do is pull, and you want to flatten that tape out as flat as you can get it and squeeze every bit of that excess mud out of there that you can. So here, because it's down low to the ground, I can do it this direction, get that little bit out of there. One thing about putting tape on, if you see a spot that has a little bubble, like it didn't get mud underneath it, usually you can see them. You don't want to just leave that and let that dry, because that's going to give you a headache. The next day you're going to end up, you'll put mud over top of this and it'll bubble out. So then you got to cut it out of there, put another piece of tape, and it costs you time. So as you're putting this stuff on, if you get a spot that don't fasten because there's not mud, it's simple to fix. You just got to, peel it back a little bit, get you a little bit more mud, get it up underneath your tape a little bit, and then squeeze it back out. Okay, and make sure that all gets fastened. If you do it the first time, then it's going to cause you less grief the following day. So normally is putting that tape on, then you let that dry, and then the next day you would put a coat over top of that, which we can't really go over right now. But the reason I want to go over the tape is some of you will have some holes where you cut your box big maybe. What you should do, first step, is try to fill that with mud and let that dry to the next day, and then put tape over it if they're real big. If they're real small, but yet you're not quite sure if the plate's going to cover, you can probably get them all in one day. Put a little bit of mud, put your mud underneath there, and then run a piece of tape. So it would be, if this was big here, you would just run a piece of tape up through there like that. Okay, so you could mud that and stick that piece of tape on there. Now you guys do have some nails out in the middle that you have to cover. With the nails, you just put it on and you're swiping the biggest share of that right back off. All you're doing is putting mud right where you dented and where the nail head is. Okay, that's all you want to do. Now that will shrink in, so it takes like 3 coats to be able to get that where it's good. There's no need of going around and hitting these like this. If you got corner bead, you don't have to hit them before you do your corner bead. Does that make sense? You hit it all at the same time. Okay, so the next day you would come here and you would use a wider trowel and get wider and take this out a little bit farther. And each coat goes on thinner and thinner. You're putting less and less amount. What I find in here about every single year is, it never fails, somebody wants to mud their whole dang project. That's not what we're shooting for. I don't want you mudding your whole project. So as you guys do yours, I don't know if I got enough here, this should be, once the corner bead's on, you'll have mud like out here, all the way around like this. Okay, but that don't mean you have to mud here. If you don't have any fasteners out there, there shouldn't be any mud out here. Okay, I don't want you to run the mud clean across your project. Okay, anybody have any questions with that? Mr. Biggs, anything that you want to add to that?